million. He had always been a generous man, but at the same time, loath to waste a penny. He hired Reverend Frederick Gates, a Baptist minister, to help him forge a new set of principles for philanthropy.
Senior began very seriously to rethink not just the vehicles, but the purposes of charity. Charity as a way of remaking society and not ameliorating evil. So cure scarlet fever. Don't provide another scarlet fever ward in a children's hospital. Find a more productive way of growing corn rather than making a soup kitchen. He was ahead of his time then, he still is.
In the coming years, Rockefeller would fund the education of black women at Spelman College in Atlanta, found the University of Chicago, the Midwestern equivalent of the Ivy League, support groundbreaking medical research, and public health campaigns. Frederick Gates pushed him on, warning, "Mr. Rockefeller, your fortune is rolling up like an avalanche. You must distribute it faster than it grows. If you do not, it will crush you and your children and your children's children." Already strained by the demands of making money, Rockefeller now staggered under the new pressures of giving it away. "I investigated and worked myself almost to a nervous breakdown," he said, "in groping my way through the ever-widening field of philanthropic endeavor." Suffering from chronic stomach problems, Rockefeller took time off from work and retreated to Forest Hill. To regain his health, he worked outdoors, rode his bike, and ate simply. By the end of the summer, he had gained 15 pounds. Still, he resisted returning to work and now contemplated something unthinkable: retirement.
Here he was this wealthy person with great power. And in his mid-50s, he gave it all up. Now, in the history, I've never seen anybody do anything like that and then be happy without it, see. Incredible wholeness and self-sufficiency, see. Power, money, status, position were no longer important to him.
In 1897, John D. Rockefeller retired from Standard Oil, keeping the presidency in name only. No public announcement was made. Few Americans realized that the man they believed responsible for running the most powerful corporation on earth had surrendered the reins. When asked why Rockefeller retained the president's title, one senior director explained, "He had to keep it. Cases against us were pending in the courts, and we told him that if any of us have to go to jail, he would have to go with us." As the only son and heir, John D. Rockefeller Jr. carried a heavy burden. From an early age, he had been taught that the responsibilities of the family fortune and name would be his to bear. By age 18, he had suffered 2 nervous collapses.
John D. Rockefeller Jr. has some really rather impossible tasks ahead of him, because by the time he comes of age, his father has been successful beyond anybody's wildest dreams, including his own, to the point where the son cannot possibly match the father. Moreover, he is certainly familiar with the proverb of those to whom much has been given, much shall be required. And by the time he comes into his own, he realizes he's been given more than anybody else. So, of course, from him shall be required more than anybody else.
Intensely conscientious, Junior entered Brown University in September 1893. He still wrote all his expenses down in a ledger and mended his own clothes. Slowly, however, he began to wean himself from his strict upbringing. For the first time in his life, he went to the theater, enjoyed football games, and even once smoked a pack of cigarettes. To the horror of his mother, he learned to dance. Soon he met Abby Aldrich, a popular Providence girl, undaunted by his name or his money.
Abby Aldrich, because she was raised in a liberated, relaxed, artistic family, was like an injection of dynamism and interest in the larger world, which John had been shielded from.
Abby's father, Nelson Aldrich, was a controversial United States senator from Rhode Island. He was fiercely criticized by the press for being the prime power broker of the great trusts. Junior admired Abby's ability to be loyal to her father and ignore the criticism he attracted. As he approached graduation, he still worshipped his own father and was deeply wounded by relentless attacks in the press. In 1897, fresh out of college, Junior went to work for Standard Oil. My one thought from the time I was a boy, he recalled, was to help my father.
When he got there, nobody bothered to tell him how he was expected to help. He was given a desk, he was given a salary, he was given some miscellaneous chores, but nobody told him what was expected of him. He had to find out for himself where his place in the world was. And perhaps that's what Senior had in mind, was letting him find his own way. But in this case, it made life more difficult for the son.
Anxious to succeed at something, Junior tried investing. He trusted the advice of a shady Wall Street speculator. Suddenly, cautious Junior lost $1 million of his father's money.
He went to see his father with what must have been a terrible churning sensation in his stomach. His father reacted very patiently. John D. Sr. asked him a lot of questions, and instead of in any way scolding or reprimanding him at the end, says, "All right, John, I'll take care of it." He saw that his son was flagellating himself about this incident and that there was no need punishing a son who was so clearly punishing himself.
Fearing the family's vast fortune would overwhelm his son, Senior begged Junior to relax. Laura, however, pushed him forward. "You are the son of the King of Kings," she reminded him, "and so you can never do what will dishonor your father or be disloyal to the king." Junior anguished over whether to marry Abby, and for 4 years prayed every day for divine guidance. Gently, his mother ended his agony, saying, "Of course you love Miss Aldrich. Why don't you go at once and tell her so?" That fall, the freewheeling Senator Aldrich invited guests to an extravagant wedding. In private yachts, the elite of Gilded Age society descended on his Rhode Island estate. Many in the press saw this union of money and political power in dark terms. One reporter warned, "The chief exploiter of the American people is now closely allied by marriage with the chief schemer." For the austere, controlled Rockefellers, Junior's new wife would be a liberating influence.
When they're first married and Junior says, well, you'll have to keep a ledger, she just says, no, I won't. And when he gives her $1,000 as a wedding present, a rather interesting act in itself, she gives it to the YWCA in Providence. So immediately you see she's going to assert herself.
Abby joined the Rockefellers as they were about to enter the most painful moment in their history. Her husband would soon find himself in the harsh light of public scrutiny, alongside his father.
In a children's hospital, find a more productive way of growing corn rather than making a soup kitchen. He was ahead of his time then, he still is.
In the coming years, Rockefeller would fund the education of black women at Spelman College and
Senior began very seriously to rethink not just the vehicles, but the purposes of charity. Charity as a way of remaking society and not ameliorating evil. So cure scarlet fever. Don't provide another scarlet fever ward.
$1 million. He had always been a generous man, but at the same time, loath to waste a penny. He hired Reverend Frederick Gates, a Baptist minister, to help him forge a new set of principles for philanthropy. Your fortune is rolling up like an avalanche. You must distribute it faster than it grows. If you do not, it will crush you and your children and your children's children. Already strained by the demands of making money, Rockefeller now in Atlanta. Found the University of Chicago, the Midwestern equivalent of the Ivy League. Support groundbreaking medical research and public health campaigns. Frederick Gates pushed him on, warning, Mr. Rockefeller,